Good morning, boys. How are you this morning? All right. I want to make sure everything's coming across okay and smoothly, as always. It's always the tech parts that are the most fun about this. Trying to make sure you got everything ready. All right. Doing good. Okay, why are you very, very tired? Were you up late last night? All right, we're going to change the video just a little bit because that is really white and bright. As always, tons of fun trying to figure out the video every morning. But that's okay. It's kind of gives you a little bit of mental exercise. I'm doing good, Logan. It's a wonderful morning, and we're going to get into some interesting stuff today. With that said, tell you what, let's do this and that. All right. And, all right, so welcome back to another class. I think this is number 5, number 6, number 5, I think. Today we're going to be covering something that's actually, I could probably take about 3 or 4 classes to go through, and later on down the line we'll come back to it and go in a little more in depth. But for today, we're going to hit the high points because we've only got about an hour. A lot of these classes a lot of the things that I'm teaching in these classes usually are either packed into a 2 or 3 hour long seminar, or they're spread out over weeks and weeks of hour-long classes and trainings. It's what we normally do. So for today, what we're going to do is hit the high points, hit some of the benefits, and we'll get back into it later on. This is a lot of these classes right now in these first few weeks while this coronavirus pandemic is going on, is to kind of give people an understanding, give them an idea of how they can kind of help themselves. So we're really going over some of the really basics. We'll get into more and more of it as time goes on. All right, so just like every class, kind of go through, we'll do a quick review of yesterday's class. Don't really have any questions or concerns unless you guys have something, and if you do, pop it up onto the chat and we'll cover it. But today we're actually going to cover identities. We're going to get kind of down deep into who you actually are. So for yesterday's class, we did the fear special. We had touched on how fear is an emotion, its connection between an experience and an emotion that a sensation that your brain puts together. They're easily made, easily broken. We kind of went over the fear scale of everything from I'm not scared at all to I'm having a panic attack, and trying to gauge where your fear is in that scale, so you can understand where you're at and where you can be, and where things are. It's always the tech parts that, and where you're gonna do the exercises we talked about to bring it down, to bring that fear level down. We talked about some of the tools, visualizations, the popping the corks works great for stress, works great for fears, for just day-to-day stuff that you want to get rid of or work through. We talked about the faster EFT tapping again. We did that video with Austin so that you could see kind of live or brand new for somebody who's never learned it before, and you learned it with them, how to do that faster EFT tapping, some of the details on that. We also went through the NLP phobia cure with Allie, fear of spiders, and I know we talked about spiders a lot yesterday. I'm sorry, because I know a lot of people are really, really scared of spiders. Personally, I've never really had a fear of them. I can remember there was one time I'm watching TV and I look down, just happened to look down. Didn't even feel it, just happened to look down. There's a spider crawling across my hand. Startled me, but didn't actually scare me. For anybody who actually is afraid of spiders, I highly recommend finding Lucas the jumping spider. He's adorable, and he's actually, from what I understand, has been helping a lot of people get over their fear of spiders just by watching how cute he is and adorable he is. So that was a lot of what we covered yesterday. We'll get into some of those. Yeah. Yeah, Lucas is. I ended up getting my wife one of the little Lucas plushies back when they came out, and he was supposed to make a noise, but I think the batteries died in shipping. But we'll, as time goes on, we'll come back to those techniques. We'll reference back to them again and again. We'll see how you guys are doing with them. If you tried those with Austin, with Ellie yesterday on something, let me know how they worked. Did they work great? Did they kind of work? Did you have any questions about them? Throw them up in the chat. We'll cover it, I promise. All right. So today, just like every class since the second one, we're going to take a few minutes, do our 5-minute exercise. So if you've got your pen and paper handy, let's do your awareness exercise, your free writing. Remember, as always, no self-editing, no judgment. Just write whatever comes through your mind, okay? Let's get that started, and I'll see you in a couple minutes. All right, guys, pencils down. Yeah. All right, so just like always, I'm hoping you guys are finding, are kind of going back through and seeing, just understanding what you're looking at, looking for those emotions, looking for those triggers, looking for the thought patterns. Tomorrow, I think, will actually be a week since we started doing the 5-minute exercise. You can wait till tomorrow. You can do it tomorrow, or you can wait till the weekend. After this first week, this is a good time to go back and start looking at the patterns throughout the week. Start looking for greater patterns, and then just go keep on writing every day for 5 minutes at a time, and you'll keep on becoming more and more aware of what's going on in your own head. And that's actually going to be super important today with what we're going to be doing, because today we're actually going to be looking at parts of an identity. We're going to be looking at who we are and what all of our identities are. Now, identities are actually, it's kind of a weird, or not even so much weird, but a very broad thing when you're talking about identities. Identities are basically who you are, who your reactions, your actions are, your behaviors, both the ones you just come up with, but mostly your expected behaviors, your skills you've created over the years, and your coping mechanisms. Now, let me show you something that could explain that a little bit better. So this is basically how your mind and your identities are kind of made up. So if you look at the outer layer, you got some very broad, general. Anybody's doing it. Then you've got inner layer, which is a little bit more on. It gets closer and closer to who you are. Next layer is even closer. It covers more of you personally, down close to the self. It gets very personal about who you are and what you are. And we're going to get a little bit more into that here in just a second. So the real reason you want to know who you are, or know your identities, because you want to know who you are underneath all those identities. You want to find that core self. And this is kind of how you find self-realization. And it also helps you to build who you really are without any worries, without any fears, without any real shakeups. This will give you more confidence and more readiness to face the world than anything else, I promise. So knowing your identities, understanding what they are, and where they are in your mind, finding your core self, and then building from that core self. These are the 3 major steps of self-realization, of understanding who you are. Now, my animation is running away. All right, guys, pencils. My animation is. This is always fun, trying to figure out why it does these things. Okay, so the layers of identity. Let's see if I can pull this back over. Nope. Okay. We're going to end up having to go back a little bit. Always love trying to have fun with technology. Okay, so I just talked about the different layers and why they're important, because they're pretty much who you are. And I think this is probably a good time to kind of get in touch with the different levels and the different ideas, because each of these layers is a mask, or each of these little things, each of identity in these layers, each identity is a mask you wear. It's a suit you put on, a costume you put on. In fact, what I want you to do is take just a couple of moments while you got your pad and paper. I'm going to give you about a minute and a half or so. I want you to describe yourself using the phrase I am. Write down, I am such and such. I am male. I am female. I am sitting. I am a student, I am a mother, a father, a brother, sister, whatever. Take a couple moments and describe yourself in as many ways as you can using the term, or starting out with the phrase, I am. All right, so I've written a couple of those down. I want you to look at them and look at what they say about you and what they say about who you are. Now, personally, I've got a ton of them. I am male. I am a brunette. I am a husband. I am a brother. I'm a son. I'm a teacher. I am white. I am sitting here. I'm a friend. There's all of these different things I can describe with about myself. These are all identities. These are all masks I kind of wear, because there are behaviors that I use as a husband that are different from what I use as a son. There are behaviors I use, and there are phrases I use. There's ways I act that are different from being a brother as opposed to being a husband. There's behaviors and ways I do differently from being a hypnotherapist to a massage therapist, from being a teacher to being a student. And each of these different behaviors, each of these different identities, I should say, comes with basically you become a different person. Maybe just slightly different, but you do become a different person. You act differently. You actually kind of create a different mindset in your mind that is from the behaviors that you think are expected, from behaviors that you've learned, from behaviors that you've created. And all of these are basically just different identities. Now, the difference between these, let's move forward a little bit and see if we can make this work again in a different way, is their labels. They're basically not only created by you, but they're created by your expectation of what you think other people think. Your behaviors as a son or daughter are different, are basically created, I should say. Your behaviors as an identity as a son or daughter are created by your expectations of what you think a son or daughter should be. My expectations of what a teacher should be are created by what I expect, or what I think others expect a teacher should be. Sometimes I get them wrong, sometimes I get them right. That's pretty much how it is. My idea of what a husband should be has been created by what I expect other people expect of me as time has gone on. I created these behaviors from watching my father, other fathers around me. media fathers. I've seen what I like and what I don't like, what I've been trained to like and what I've been trained not to like. And all of these kind of came into a conglomeration of the label, the identity of father, or as son. What I've seen, what I've I kind of got off on a little bit of there. As a son, from what my father expected of me, from what I've seen media expected of me, and it even expands out into cultural things. Part of my identity is I am a lower middle class Caucasian male, and the media puts out there that there are certain ways I'm expected to behave. There are certain levels of, excuse me. Sorry. I've been trying to sneeze and blow my nose and not to sneeze all morning. But as a lower middle class Caucasian male, there are certain behaviors that society expects from me. And I take those and mix them with other things that I've learned over the years, other behaviors, and that is an identity. And so I put on the mask of lower middle class Caucasian male when I go out into the world, and then I interact with the world with those sets of behaviors. That's how we all do things. If you're talking to coworkers, your identity as a coworker, you put on that mask and you behave in a certain way that you think your coworkers expect of you, and so you act differently at work than you do at home. The problem with with these, I'm gonna jump forward a little bit. The problem with identities is that they're very fluid. They change all the time. What you think of that's expected of you, what your identity as a coworker changes as time goes on, and you integrate more associations in, break other associations. The identity of that coworker changes, of what you think is expected of you as a coworker. And when these changes happen enough, it throws you off. It throws off who you are as a person, causes a radical redefinition of that identity, and that can really screw with people. I'm going to use an extreme example of somebody with cancer. Okay, you get people as soon as they find out as soon as they're diagnosed with cancer. For a lot of people, they go, hi, my name is Mike, the cancer patient. My name is Mike, the cancer survivor. And this becomes a really, really deep down part of a really deep down identity. And so from then on, it really kind of becomes part of who they are. And even though the cancer has come and gone, and has gone for a long time, that identity has become ingrained in them so much that they can't let go of it, or it's very hard to let go of it. It's hard for them to go back to being Mike. Empty nest syndrome for parents. You spend so long being mother or father that that identity has gone from maybe a little farther out here down very close to the core self. And when children leave for college or move out for whatever, and it's quote unquote permanent, that shakes up your daily identities so much that the parents now actually have to relearn who they are, with the mother-father being out here instead of down here. So now they have to relearn who they are as, woman, as man, as husband, as wife, as adult. I mean, you've been doing children's stuff for so long. Now you've got to relearn how to be an adult, how to find the things that you enjoy doing, how to find your hobbies again, because so much of your focus, so much of your attention, so many of your identities have been focused on being parent, that it's this huge upset. And that's why so many people have a problem with, or have or why empty nest syndrome hits so many people so hard. Postpartum depression. It is a hormone imbalance. A mother who's just newly given birth, her hormones are basically like a James Bond cocktail. They've been shaken up so much that it's taking a while to resettle. But part of that is changing the identity as pregnant woman and expectant mother to newborn mother. All of these skills, all of these things that she's been living with and learning and adapting to for so long are now useless. They're, how to walk around with a very pregnant belly is no longer important. Eating for two, quote unquote, is no longer important. Now she's got to become new mother and learn a whole new set of skills, a whole new set of behaviors. And that's why, we'll get into breaking the cycle here in just a second. But by having to shift from one to the other is such a radical shift in identity that it takes most new mothers by surprise, because their subconscious doesn't know that they're going to have to make this change, and it hits so hard that it causes massive mood swings along with the hormones, and it causes depression. This Maria, who was a pregnant mother, is gone. That identity is gone. And there's actually almost a grieving process for it, because that's such a radical shift. There's a bit of a grieving process for it by Maria, the new mother. And these identities, to go to the idea of breaking the cycle, which is most commonly used with the cycle of abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual abuse, from generation to generation to generation, because now that new mother identity has been shaped by Maria's version of what a mother should be, what she's learned from her mother, good or bad, from media, good or bad, from her culture, good or bad, from her spouse or partner, good or bad. What husband or wife thinks of Maria, of what she should be as a mother, is also ingrained in there. So the thing of breaking the cycle is that expectation of what a mother should be. If her mother was abusive, or her mother or grandmother, if this cycle kept on going, and this training, this identity training keeps on going, it's this vicious cycle where Maria may, if she can't learn how to break out of it, may be abusive to her child, who's abusive to their child, who's abusive. They just keep on learning it. But if Maria can learn to break that cycle and recognize those abusive behaviors and tendencies, and can short circuit them, break the connection, get away from them, and be a healthier mother to her children than maybe her mother was to her, and her grandmother was to her mother, then she has broken the cycle. Sorry, a little tangent there, and I kind of meant to put that in way later, but it just kind of popped in right there, and it's a good way to do it. Or a good way to think of, or a good time to think of breaking the cycle. Now, so we've been talking about how identities are very fluid, how they change. Your core, who you are right down at the center, without any identities, that's solid. When you can get to the point where you are saying, where you're no longer talking about, I am male, I am female, I'm Caucasian, I'm Asian, I'm African American, I am husband, daughter, son, brother, sister, massage therapist, construction worker, teacher, artist. When you can find out who you are beneath all of that, there's this core deep down inside you that becomes solid. You find out not so much who you get to the point where you can say I am. Not I am such and such, but I am. And down deep in that core is where you can find your confidence. Because that core is so solid, it can't be shaken. It doesn't change. It is who you are at the very center. If you go from being a cancer patient to a cancer survivor, but you understand that core, the masks don't matter. Now, let me go back to the masks, because when we put on these masks of these different identities, and I'm not saying the masks are good or bad. It's just kind of an analogy for the different identities, because each identity kind of has a slightly different face that we show to the people who we think expect that behavior. When we put on these masks, most of the time, because we're bouncing from mask to mask to mask, and we're getting so involved in that identity, the mask is flat up against our face. We become that person so totally that we don't even know we're wearing the mask anymore. But when you can find that core, find that core self, those masks are no longer flat up against your face. There's a little bit of space. You're still speaking through the mask because you've learned these interactions. But because there's that space between your core self and all of your identities, you're able to recognize more about those identities. And when those identities get shaken up, it doesn't affect you as much. If you're wearing the mask right up close to your face and that identity changes, that mask changes, you're gonna feel it. Sorry, I have no better way of really doing that. You're gonna feel it. It's gonna affect you. But if you've got the mask out here and it changes, it's not going to affect you anywhere near as much or at all, depending on how well you found that core of yourself. And that's why finding your core is important. It gets to the point where, I'm going to put this, when I found my core a long time ago, it was pretty much in my mid-20s. I'd been practicing this for a long time, but I didn't have anybody to tell me, this about identities and core self. I actually had to find it on my own. And at the time I found it, I was going through a relationship breakup. I was going through job change. I was going through moving from one place to another. All of these identities were shifting. And I'd been practicing the awareness and the analysis for a long time, but all of a sudden I started recognizing the identities. I started recognizing, okay, this is Dylan the truck driver. This is Dylan the now ex-boyfriend. This is Dylan the person who now lives in such and such. But underneath it, I started recognizing who I was underneath the core, or underneath all those identities, because I kept trying to find who I was underneath all these identities, and every part of, I could say I am such and such, okay, that's an identity. I am this, that's an identity. I got to the point where I could say I am, down deep at the core, and stuff stopped affecting me. I'm not saying this that I turned into a Vulcan and no emotions hit and nothing like this, but when about a year after I'd been practicing of living, I should say, from that core self, I was working, I had been working as a security officer for a brief time, and a person who used to work at the company that I'd been working at as a security officer came up to me, definitely trying to start some drama. In big ways, she was trying to start drama. And she said, "Do you realize how many people thought you walked gay?" Now, that's a quote, so don't turn away. That's a direct quote. She was obviously trying to get my goat. She was trying to get a reaction out of me. She was trying to create drama. But since I'd been living from that core self, I didn't care. I recognized she was trying to start drama. I recognized why. I recognized that there that one of the identities of me a long time ago might have actually been affected by that. But from that core self, it didn't affect me. I wasn't offended. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't frustrated. I didn't try and lash out, lash back. I felt no reason to. I had rebuilt who I was from that core self. And so the identities I'd put out there, or the identities I'd rebuilt and then rebuilt from that core self weren't shaken by that. That core self wasn't hurt by that. And when you can find that core self, you'll find the confidence to face the world, because you won't have to worry about fears anymore. You won't have to worry about getting emotionally hurt unless you allow it to happen. You don't have to worry about about rejection. You don't have to worry about disapproval, except from those that you really want the approval of, that you want to affect you. Like right now, of all the people I know, there is a very small number of people who I actually care about their approval, and whether or not they are happy with the things I do or don't, or don't do. If they're happy with me, fantastic. If they're not, it means I need to change something, possibly, depending on what I'm doing. But I can do it from that core and understand if what they're disapproving of is healthy or unhealthy behavior on my part, or if it's just their perceptions that they're trying to project onto me. Without being able to live from that core, I'd be a lot more uncertain about that. I'd be a lot more worried about rejection and disapproval. But from those core people, that's who I allow to affect me. Everybody else out here, don't care. And I've learned how to do that because I've learned from that core. When you've learned how to build from that core all these different identities that are moving around and changing, that are affected by others' approval or disapproval, maybe not, because their expectations of what you think people think. Sorry, I bounced back. Because they're so fluid and are based on other people's expectations. Because I'm going from that core, they don't affect me. They can move, they can change, all these identities, and the approval or disapproval, the perceptions that come with them, I don't have to worry about those. So I can live with walking through a crowd and somebody saying, "Hey, you're bald." So what? And it takes away so much anguish out of life, and it brings you this wonderful sense of peace. And that's how you can find your core. When you've been practicing the awareness to the point where you're understanding your identities, you're understanding your connections, you're understanding which ones are good, which ones are bad, but you're understanding the I am such and such, and you finally get to the point of I am. That's awareness and analysis. Then you can build back out from there. You create the healthy habits that are based on that solid core. You create the healthy mental patterns, and the longer you do it, the better it works. The stronger your core, or the stronger your identities are. And when they change, they don't affect you as much because you've got that solid core. You can face the world with peace. And as you're going through, as you're changing your identities, as you're changing your mental behaviors, you can say, okay, is this bringing me peace? Is this new thought pattern bringing me peace, or is it bringing me pain? And you can go from there. And that's actually one of the better ways you can find is a new mental pattern I'm trying to create. Is that healthy or is that unhealthy? Is it bringing me peace or is it bringing me pain? And we'll get into that in another time. So again, I can't stress this enough. Practice, practice, practice. The awareness, the analysis, We'll get into analysis after you guys have had some time practicing the awareness. But as you're going throughout your day, and as you're going through your exercises, try and recognize your identities. I am a gamer. I am, especially, okay, so for the gamers, especially younger gamers, I was just watching a video on this the other day about a kid who, or I can't say a kid, but a guy who actually got banned from Twitch because he was just getting angry and verbally abusive to people because because he kept losing, because things weren't going his way, and he blamed it on his teammates, he blamed it on the game, he blamed it on his system, and if he was able to go through and say, I am angry because of this, I am being hurt by what I perceive as their failure, as my teammates' failure. I am supposed to be an angry gamer. That's what I've seen other people do. This is who I am. I am gamer. I am angry gamer. I am Twitch streamer. I am, and is allowing all these things to affect him. But if he could live from that core, then these things wouldn't affect him, and he'd probably find a happier time gaming. Whenever I'm playing a video game and something doesn't go my way, it lets me just kind of, living from that core lets me go, okay, let's try it again. Oop, okay, that didn't work. Let's try it again. Even works on bigger ways. So a few years ago, my pickup truck got broken into. Years and years of tool buildup, and a toolbox that my family had just gotten me that could actually accommodate all these tools, gone, completely gone. Swiped. No real damage done to the truck. Had to replace a glass window. But the tools, probably about $500 to $700 worth of tools gone. I walked up to the truck, saw what had happened, recognized a split second of frustration and anger, and from that core said, okay, is this frustration and anger going to help me? Is it going to help me move forward? Is it going to help me get my tools back? Is it going to help me do anything? And I realized it's really not. And so we short-circuited the anger. Had I not been living from that core, my first reaction would have been to yell, scream, stomp, waste time, probably beat on my truck a little bit, and just basically do myself some emotional and mental damage, create a whole lot of stress, which creates physical damage on a certain level and after a certain amount of time, and it's just not worth it. I realized from that core, it's not worth it. It doesn't help me move forward. Those emotions aren't bringing me peace. Now, there is another time where living through those emotions can be useful, but we'll get into that a completely different time. So for right now, all I can say is keep practicing recognizing your identities, recognize who you are at the bottom, or learn who you are at the very core. And you'll understand you've got there because you'll have found this really deep, unshakable sense of peace and contentment. So with that, I know I tend to ramble on with some of this and go over and over and over, but I really want to get some of these points across in different ways. I want to see, do you guys have any questions about anything we've covered before, about anything I've talked about today? Throw those questions up on the chat really quick. I know we're coming close. Well, we've got about 15 minutes left to cover questions. If not, then we'll end class early. Don't worry about it. But I really want to make sure you guys understand this on a deep level, because it helps so much with getting through life with a low stress level and a high happiness level. So go ahead and throw up any questions on the chat. All right. Well, then, I think we'll call it there. And you guys have a great day. Keep finding ways to be happy in quarantine and isolated. Find a puzzle to do. Reach out to somebody. Talk to them on Zoom. Talk to them on just on the phone. Shout across the yard to your neighbor. Anything you can do. But just keep finding ways to connect. Find ways to find happiness and contentment. And I promise this will end. There will be another, or it will go away to some level, and we'll be able to get back to it'll be a new normal, but it'll be a normal. Anyway, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. As always, stay happy, stay healthy.